Welcome in to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, the official podcast of your New Orleans Pelicans. A podcast dedicated to everything you need to know about the squad. Hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and those who cover the NBA on a daily basis. It's time to flock up. The New Orleans Pelicans Podcast starts right now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, the official podcast of your New Orleans Pelicans. It is Wednesday, December 4th. Gus Kattengell, Jim Eichenhofer with you here as well. Jim, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing well, man. I'm excited about this podcast. I'm not excited about, still waiting for a win. that hopefully will come soon. I do have a direct line. I didn't know if you know that, to Santa Claus. And maybe,
I didn't know that.
Yes,
no.
well, I might have just copied and pasted. Like, you remember, like in The Simpsons at the very beginning, Bart Simpson's writing on the chalkboard, I will not, whatever, like 100 times. I might have done that to Santa Claus's list.
Okay.
Pelicans really want to win. Pelicans really win. One win, please. No, I'm excited because Tuesday was a big day. And it is a big day. And it is a big honor. What am I talking about?
You're talking about Herb Jones getting his uniform number 2 retired by his high school in Alabama. So this is going to be a tribute to Herb Jones. So get ready for a lot of Herb content. And I mean, this is a good time to talk about some positive stuff. So I'm excited about this.
And it is good because I jokingly say it every now and then. I even put it in Pelicans Weekly yesterday, and I've become pretty good with some of the folks over at my high school and things of nature. It is an honor. I mean, it's pretty cool that I even get asked to go back to career day, and I joke, hey, maybe I'll get like a bush or a tree or part of a sidewalk or a parking spot named after me.
Yes.
To get your jersey retired, and especially, this isn't, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, or Auburn, these big cities that have big colleges and stuff. Greensboro, I think of Greensboro because of what I've done in the past. I think of Greensboro, in Carolina, where ECU is and things of that nature.
Right.
It's Greensboro, Alabama. And to have somebody come out of there, make it to the NBA, go to the University of Alabama, and then come into the NBA and have the success that Herb has, I think it's a pretty big thing.
It is, and I think, the more you listen to people describe Herb and talk about his high school career, as we're going to do with his high school coach on the show today, I think it makes you realize, too, that this wasn't just an athletic honor. It wasn't just his number 2 was retired because he was amazing at basketball and he won you state championship and he did all these great things and had all these stats.
Which is enough.
Which is, right, that would have been enough. I mean, just the kind of person he is, I think, is also a factor in this as well. I mean, maybe if he was the biggest jerk we know, they still would have retired his number.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that when you hear people speak about Herb, you hear just as much about his personality and the way he carries himself and his approach and his attitude as you do his incredible performances on the basketball floor.
Yeah, no doubt. Look, this was back over the weekend when Todd Graffinini, and you heard this on Pelicans Weekly, and if you didn't, shame on you. It is on the website if you want to go listen to that interview in which he talked about what it'd be like getting there on Tuesday to going back to his high school.
I'm excited to see a lot of familiar faces. Talk about the old times that we all shared back at Hale County when I was in school. And, we was fortunate enough to win a state championship, so I'm excited to see, some of my old teammates and coaches.
Now, Jim, you were a basketball god yourself over there in the state of New York. Did you ever get a chance to be on a high school state-winning basketball team?
Heck no. No. Not even a sectional. That's the way it is in New York.
Oh, sectional.
It's divided into sections. There's maybe 12 or 14 in New York. We were Section 5. No, I did not have that honor.
It's a real shame.
Yeah.
It was interesting you heard him say that. It's a little story to that high school title as well.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I don't think a lot of people know me and my dad and the team that I played for prior to going to Hale County. Sunshine High School, we actually lost in the state championship the year we closed. And it was just, super fulfilling to not only win the first state championship for Hale County, but also, kind of getting one for my dad in a sense.
We're going to hear a little bit about that relationship with his parents here in a quick second. So before he got a chance to speak at the ceremony yesterday, first and foremost, set the scene for us, Jim, which I thought was incredible. It's Herb, his family, and then his basketball family.
Yeah, so the Pelicans played, obviously, a back-to-back. They played Sunday night in New York, and then they flew to Atlanta, played there Monday night. So normally what you would do after the game Monday is you would fly back to New Orleans, but a lot of the players stayed overnight in Atlanta so that they could fly from there to Greensboro, Alabama. That's a pretty short flight, but that was the only way to do it feasibly, unless you were going to – it wouldn't have made sense for them to come back here and then go to Greensboro. But it was, incredible to have so many players, so many teammates. David Griffin mentioned this during the ceremony too, that a lot of these guys are kind of worn out with the situation with the team. The team hasn't been winning lately. Obviously, they just played 3 games in 4 nights on the road trip. Tuesday was a day off, which you don't get a lot of those during stretches of the NBA season, and
True.
They don't have. I don't think they have any days off coming up either. So they could have done a lot of different things, but they chose to be at Herb's event, so that was cool.
And right before he spoke, head coach Nate Oates of the University of Alabama had a few things to say, which I thought was interesting. I thought you guys would like to listen to it here as well. This is when he first learned about Herb Jones.
I'm not going to take long, but I'm glad they invited me. So I came down from Buffalo, 6 years ago. They told me when I got the job that I had to have a meeting with the team leader, and they put me in touch with Herb Jones pretty quickly. I think the first day I was the second day I was in Tuscaloosa. So I sat down and met with Herb, and what I found is he's literally he's an elite basketball player, elite athlete, but he's the most humble, no maintenance, best basketball player I've ever been around in my life. So for me, we've got this thing kind of off the ground run now. We've been pretty decent here the last few years, but it really wouldn't have ever been possible if it wasn't for him. He was the team leader. He stepped up.
And not just stepping up, he immediately goes into that wouldn't have happened if his parents would have been involved. This is their meeting.
They wanted one meeting with me, which is, if you know how parents these days are, they wanted to just meet me and introduce themselves to me. So they came in, introduced themselves to me, said they're there to support me, and that's all they did the rest of the time. They were there. I count them as friends and try to be there for them whenever I can. I see them down at the Pelicans games when I go. But so, quick story on Herb. For those of you that don't know, our first year was his junior year. He played 2 years for previous coach, and I got there and we made a transition. He made 1-3 his entire junior year with us. So he was 1 of 14 from 3. Now, part of it was he broke his left wrist halfway through the year, so he could only take 14. He wasn't going to shoot him with his right hand, but he broke it against LSU. Now he's down in Louisiana. He was supposed to be out a few weeks. He was out, 10 days. And he said, forget this. I got to play. Give me a cast I can play with. So him and our trainer, Clark, figured out how to get him a cast. And so the first game back, I think it was a week and a half later, we played Auburn. And I tried to put him in, right before a timeout. We're going to be on defense, get him 1 possession on D. Coming out of a timeout, get him 1 possession on D and get him out because he couldn't really do anything with his strong hand in the cast. So we just pulled him in and out every time we could for defense. We get to the end of the game, and it was a tight game. We lost like 1 or 2 possession game, big rival game, and I think we were plus 13 in 9 minutes, if I remember right. So, I'm a math guy. Well, it doesn't make any sense to only play him 9 minutes if you're plus 13 and lose by 1 or 2. So the next game we just said the heck with it and played him as many minutes as we could against LSU. So he's playing 2 weeks after breaking his hand against LSU. He's got his left hand in the cast. All he's got is his right hand. He pulls down 17 rebounds. And they intentionally foul him at the end of the game. I've got this picture up around the offices, but he goes to the free throw. I still get chills thinking about it. So when we knew he was going to be able to play, all he did was kind of sit over to the side and shoot free throws with his right hand. So for those of you that were here, he steps to the line after they intentionally foul him and try to get a free stop and goes 2 for 2 at the line and steals the win. But I think it just kind of shows you the dedication he's got. He's really dedicated.
About that, Jim.
Yeah, I've heard that story. That's incredible. But it kind of doesn't surprise you that Herb was that resourceful that he's like, well, my my left wrist is broken, but let me just practice shooting free throws with my right hand, and then he steps up in the game and makes 2 clutch ones.
Yeah. Got one more quick one from Nate Oates where he talks about the selflessness of Herb Jones.
He was the most selfless, like servant's heart player I've ever coached. I know it comes from his upbringing and from his parents, but like his dad said, sometimes guys get a little notoriety, some recognition, and they get all the humility goes out the window and money changes people. It hasn't changed him a bit. He's the same guy I met when I first got here. So I love the fact you guys are putting his jersey up here. I come down to Hale County when my daughters play volleyball down here. I love to see his jersey up every time we're in here. So appreciate all you guys coming to support her. It's also, I think I'm going to say this, speaks to the level of teammate he is that all these guys showed up. So mad respect for all you guys.
And that's what I was going to say earlier. The amount of players that were there on a Tuesday, on a day off, says a lot.
It really does. I mean, I think the amount of respect that the other players have for Herb is pretty immense. So in some ways, it's incredible that many players and teammates would show up for his ceremony. It wasn't, an easy logistical thing. It wasn't like you could just walk down the street and be there.
Right.
But on the other hand, it's not surprising if you realize, what the players think of Herb.
All right, no doubt. We're going to speak to his head coach, by the way, who was at the ceremony, Antwan Butler, coming up here in about 4 minutes, because for the next 4 minutes, do you want to hear what Herb had to say yesterday? In a classic Herb fashion, he starts with, well, I had a plan, and then I had to alter it just a little bit. Here you go.
Herb Jones, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening. I had a speech, but I really just wanted to give a message to the younger kids here. Growing up, I really never had any aspirations of playing in the NBA. I just always, just love the game, love to be around the game, and making sure my teammates, succeeded in whatever they wanted to do. That's just that was my approach with everything. I challenged my friends in class to make the highest grades. In the basketball world, we was always competing, playing ones, shooting games, always competing to try to make each other better. But it was never a dream to, go play in the NBA, get my jersey retired. And I think everything that my family taught me, instilled in me the hard work ethic, caring about people, putting others before yourself, it always kind of panned out. And I think the most important thing that I've taken away from my family is learning to work hard without expecting immediate results. Knowing it's going to take time, regardless of what it is. In the classroom, if you don't understand something, as long as you continue to work on it, eventually it'll come to you. And with basketball, you might not know everything, but if you show up every day, give it 110%, at some point, it'll break for you. I feel like that's, kind of how all of this happened. It was never a goal. I talked to my mom a lot about it. I just never, knew this would happen, coming from Greensboro, Alabama. I just wanted to show up, work hard, make sure my friends did better than I did. And it's just crazy. It's a crazy feeling to, come back somewhere where you never thought anything like that could happen, never seeing it. It was tough growing up, not being able to see, super high level athletes and seeing what it looks like and have an example to follow after. I just kind of competed, within the group I had at whatever level I was at to maximize whatever opportunities I had, and it kind of panned out for me. I want to thank, the Pelicans for supporting me, believing in me, giving me a chance. I want to thank my teammates for showing up. I know you guys could, be at the crib right now resting up. I appreciate you all for coming. My parents, my family, love you guys. I appreciate everything you've done for me. My coaches in college, I appreciate you for getting me in the gym when I was in a pretty tough spot. My sophomore year, I was almost done with hoops. They came in and kind of revived it. I was just, going through a lot mentally, just life things, and, found my love for the game again. I want to thank the high school for, honoring me in this way. It's still crazy to,
to think about having my jersey retired. All of the staff, principal, my coaches, my teammates, I thank everybody for pushing me, to be better every single day and not letting me, cut corners or, take the easy ways out, even when things got tough. And I just want to, again, go back to the younger people. I feel like it's never too late to do the right thing. We all know, for the most part, what we need to be doing. And it's on all of us to hold each other accountable to do those things, no matter how tough it is. If you say you love someone, you should hold them accountable, and the person that you holding accountable shouldn't have any negative responses if it's the right thing to do. That's pretty much all I have. I appreciate everybody for coming out today. Oh, my bad.
Jim, that was 4 minutes and 58 seconds, and that's including, obviously, as you can hear the applause in here. Why do I feel like you can apply that to anything in life? And you can hear just in 4 minutes why so many people hold him in such high regard and why he's been able to be successful. But I love hearing when someone says, don't cut corners when it's not easy when you do that. But giving us a little peek of him saying, man, I had to refine the love for hoops at a certain point. We all go through tough times, and to hear him do that, and again, it's just 4 minutes, but I feel like I learned a lot there.
I think one of the reasons that Herb's philosophy and approach resonates with people is because it's kind of so old school. It's kind of like what your parents told you, what your grandparents told you when you were a little kid, of like, there's certain things that don't change in life, and one of them is, you got to work hard at stuff, and then you might not get exactly the reward that you want, but you'll probably get close to that. And, here he is in the NBA,
yeah.
Something that he said wasn't a goal. But, I just think a lot of it is because his whole way of being just seems to be such a traditional, something that was applied 100 years ago and will apply 100 years from now as well. So yeah. I think that's one of the reasons why people just gravitate towards him.
Before we speak with his high school head basketball coach, you have some interesting behind the numbers.
Yeah, Gus, not only are we paying tribute to Herb Jones in terms of what he did in the past with his high school career and them retiring his jersey, but it's also good news to know that he's on the verge of coming back and being on the court playing. So, the timing of this was really totally coincidental, but excellent. We're hoping that he can play Thursday, if not Thursday, sometime soon. He was listed as doubtful for the previous game against Atlanta, and that seems to be the first step that the Pelicans have had lately. For guys coming back from injury, they're listed as doubtful, and then maybe a game or two later they get back on the court. So it'll be great to have Herb for the first time since October 29th against Golden State. But, one of the things I looked up in kind of preparation for him coming back, over his 4 seasons in the NBA, the Pelicans are 16-28 in the games that he doesn't play. They've lost 21 of the last 26 games that Herb has been sidelined for. Obviously, part of that is they're 2-16 this year when Herb doesn't play. So they were 2-2 when he was injured. And now you look at where they are now, and you see, obviously, it's not like it's only been Herb that's been injured. But,
sure.
He's a huge element, especially to the defensive end, that they went from sixth place the 2 previous seasons in defense to now they're in the bottom 2 or 3 teams, and he made first team all defense. So get him back on the court. If he can play against the Suns, you're talking Kevin Durant and Booker. So pretty good timing for him to come back in terms of, I think it's not just what Herb does defensively on his own. It's the fact that the other guys don't have as tough of an assignment. He can take the best guy, and then somebody else is covering the second best guy. So all of a sudden, I think it has a ripple effect. It makes everybody else better on the defensive end.
You think Atlanta gets 74 points in the paint? If Herb Jones is on a...
Probably not.
Is that a lot, by the way? 74 points?
It's quite a bit,
okay.
yeah.
I didn't know if it was or not. Let's hear from Antwan Butler. He is the head coach of Hale County High School, where back on Tuesday, the jersey was retired. So we asked him today what that was like. All right, time now to welcome in a very special guest, Mr. Antwan Butler, head coach of Hale County High School over there, where you were a little busy there yesterday, Coach. First off, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing good. How are y'all doing?
Doing great.
Doing fantastic. What was it like yesterday, Coach?
It was awesome. It was truly amazing to see someone you coached and see him grow up, and always been a great young man. Come back and get his jersey retired. It was a great atmosphere, great time, and he's well deserved.
You mentioned how great of an individual Herb is. Can you kind of take us back to his high school days? I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but what was his personality like? What was his attitude like when you first saw him and you first got him in as a player you were coaching?
Well, he was a great dude. He introduced himself, shook my hand, told me his name. Well, I knew who he was anyway because I used to coach against him when he played at Sunshine. But and I knew his dad, so he came in from day one, the hardest work on the team, a team leader, and school his academic, great grades, and had to check on his grades and nothing like that. Didn't have to worry about him at all. He just came in and took care of his business, and that's a testament to his mom and dad for raising him the right way.
What was his, one of the things that people talk about here is that it seems like he's really quiet, but his teammates actually say all the time that he's not nearly as quiet as we think he is. He's not as low-key as we think he is, that he's really a funny guy as well when he's around people that he knows, that he's really familiar with. What was he like as a player back then? Was he always kind of known as like the shy, quiet guy, or did you get to know him in a different way than that?
Yeah, he came and he's quiet, but like you said, once he gets to know you, he is a funny dude. He'll sneak a joke in every now and then, and he was great with his teammates. He could talk to them about anything, joke around with them about anything, and make sure everybody was focused. So he was a leader from the day I got him. But he was always quiet. But once he gets to know you, once I got to know him well, he'll joke with me and different things like that. So he was a great kid.
It's funny because Trey Murphy, who is one of the Pelicans players that was at the ceremony yesterday, I always think it's kind of funny that Trey and Herb probably have the most, at least from my perception, they have the most opposite personalities that you could possibly think of. Trey is one of those guys that is always talking. He's always joking around. He's, always, going out of his way to say hello to pretty much anyone that is in his presence. But Trey seems to love Herb just like a lot of people do. But I just thought it's interesting just that he kind of gravitates towards him and has so much respect for him. But in terms of, maybe on the court with Herb when he was in high school, can you describe, all Pelicans fans are familiar with him this is his fourth season in the NBA. We've seen him play, a couple hundred games at this point. But what was his game like in high school? Was it a big difference from what you see now?
Well, he played point for me, some of the point, along with another guy. He did whatever. ain't nothing changed. Whatever he needed to do so we can win the game. So he guarded the best player or help and block shots. He was the leader in charges. Ain't nothing changed. He led the team in charges. Whatever it took, rebounding, whatever it took to win the game, that's what he was willing to do. He didn't, and when it was time for him to score, and now in high school, he had more scoring. Not ability, but he had more. He had to do more scoring for us than we had to do for them. So when it was time for him to step up, he could go to work. But like I said, anything he needed to do for the team to win, he was willing to do, and that's what makes him a great player and a great guy. He's just all about winning.
I think one of the things, Coach, speaking with Antwan Butler, head coach of Hale County High School, where back on Tuesday, the jersey was retired for Mr. Herb Jones. I think one of the things that I want to go back to what you said, too, what you said, you noticed that he was a leader there. I thought last year, Jim and I kind of raised our eyes a little bit in a very positive way when head coach Willie Green early in the season said one of the team captains this year was Herb Jones, and he was going to be kind of pushed to be more of a captain. And he spoke about, hey, I got to be more vocal and things of that nature. What were some of those leadership qualities that you saw that made you think this guy could be a leader in our team?
Well, like I said, since day one, he showed up. He led by example to start off. All right. Doing extra conditioning, extra shooting, and then gravitating and pulling the other teammates in. This is what we need to do extra, shoot with me, do this, and stuff like that. Being disciplined. He would get on to the players, you know. He would hold team meetings. The coach didn't have to leave. He pull them to the side after practicing some. Y'all come here, talk to him. He's just a natural born leader to me because he do things the right way. So people gonna listen to somebody gravitate if they doing it the right way. They're not trying to embarrass you or nothing like that. Just trying to help the team, help the cause, and help to win. So that's what I see.
As far as on the court, what do you think are some of the biggest improvements that you've seen Herb make over these years from his high school career to now? I mean, it seems like, for example, one of the things that his college coach, Nate Oates, talked about was his three-point shooting was something that wasn't even part of the equation when he was at Alabama for the Crimson Tide. But, I mean, are there certain parts of Herb's game that you look at him now and you're just like so impressed and amazed at the strides that he's been able to make by just working as hard as he does?
Yeah, of course the shooting, and he's always been a lockdown defender. He just perfected his craft on defending, and he's been a good passer, and he attacked the basket. To me, the games I saw, he can get downhill a little bit better now and attack the basket and can finish around that rim and dunk and lay it up on people. So, and along with the shooting, so he's gonna work on his game.
Coach, one thing I wanted to kind of hit on as well is something that you mentioned at the very beginning on what he's done, not only with his parents, but also getting that jersey retired yesterday. I think it's very easy for us all the way over here to be like, oh, that's a nice thing. What a nice ceremony. Great words being said. How does that impact the community, though, especially where he's at in that place in Alabama, that you legit have somebody that is at a professional level, but you can sit there, coach, and go, look, this is the path. This is how we did it. This is parents. This is how you raise your kids. This is how you do that. And to do that, can that legitimately affect the community?
Yes, because you have a blueprint. If you do certain things the right way, it's not necessarily you're going to make it to the NBA, but you'll be successful in life in general if you do things a certain way and do things right. So he has a blueprint. Working hard. Anybody who works hard is eventually going to see some kind of progress. So you work hard and stick with it and do things the right way, and good will follow you. And that's the blueprint. And whatever you want to be in life, basketball or whatever. And that's what he's done, and it took him to the NBA.
I think the other thing I want to close up with you, too, what was it like to see basically the Pelicans show up? Not only from front office to executives, but I thought maybe Trey, would be there or not. And I see the video from last night. You had everybody there, man. What's it like to see that and for your kids to see that, and then I think for him to see that?
That means great support. When people come out to celebrate you, that means they respect you and respect your grind and your hard work to come out and see something, see something that you accomplished and you get celebrated, and that means a lot. That means, they'll go back to high character. Everybody wants to come see him get celebrated.
Well, Coach, as always, man, appreciate the time. Continued success over there. And I think it's great not only that we got a chance to celebrate a player that we've got a chance to know, but as you mentioned, leaving an example at your high school. And at the end of the day, that's what it matters, man. What you do, Coach, working with kids and helping them be successful in life. We thank you for what you're doing.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time, Coach.
All right, appreciate y'all.
Yep, Mr. Antwan Butler, head coach of Hale County High School. Our thanks to head coach Antwan Butler. Great stuff there. Obviously, that had to be a very special thing, and that's cool, right? You could always just although I feel for the kids now. Anybody that goes there don't want to have that kind of practice, he just points. See that guy? He did it right.
I mean, how about being a high school coach anywhere and having one of your players go to the NBA? I mean, that's pretty amazing as well. So, I think like you kind of alluded to when you were speaking with him or when we were asking him questions, I mean, you can tell your players too, like, hey, if you do things, someone from this town, from this high school is in the NBA playing right now. So it's like anything is possible. You can achieve your goals if you just, work hard and you follow the Herb Jones
Blueprint,
exactly.
As Coach called it. It was great. Yep. Last night, you followed Clearview Parkway down the way from where the facility is, crossed the Earhart Expressway, took a right, Nike. right there in Elmwood.
Yes.
Trey Murphy was there holding an event, which, again, in and of itself was, first off, why was he there?
He was there for a community event with kids that they were, I think it was in conjunction with Nike, where they were given maybe gift cards, or they were given something where they could pick out an item. There's going to be more coverage on Pelicans.com and through our social media that people will be able to follow for more details than what I'm able to provide right now. But it was a cool event, and I was able to speak with him because I knew he had been at the Herb Jones ceremony, and we know that Trey is really tight with Herb. So just wanted to ask him for kind of a recap of how the event went.
And this is what it sounded like.
I thought you'd be a good correspondent for the Pelicans podcast from the Herb Jones jersey retirement ceremony. What was that like being there for that?
Oh, no, it was great. I mean, obviously seeing all of his family there was really good to see. Seeing the whole community support him and show up. Even his college coach came. It just shows, what type of person Herb is as a person. So, yeah.
Being kind of the center of attention and being praised by everybody doesn't really seem like Herb's comfort zone. How did he handle that today?
He handled it pretty well. I mean, gave his speech, and he almost actually started crying during the speech, but he handled it very well. He's been good, and that's something I feel like a lot of guys, especially on our team, might struggle with, like overly praise and stuff like that, because we're such in a system of absolutely thank you, I appreciate you. Especially because we're a bunch of guys that just want to work, and that's the biggest thing. We're not really too worried about accolades and attention. So when we have moments like this, it's a little tough sometimes.
There was a social media post, I think, from like the official Pelicans X account where they showed you in the crowd taking video of him speaking. I mean, what was it like for you as a good friend of his, of just the moment of being able to experience that with him?
It was great. I mean, I was really recording because I know my mom and my dad would want to see it, so it's really for them to see it. But it's just put a smile on my face, just hear Herb talk about, everything that happened, and then he, like, the accolades he had, I didn't even know about. Like, he's really the man, and you wouldn't even know because of the way that Herb carries himself.
Thank you, man.
Yep, appreciate it.
That's so cool to hear. I mean, you can hear there's a friendship there. I mean, that's legit caring about that person.
Yeah, he loves Herb. I mean, a lot of people do, but yeah, it's cool to see how tight they are. And I kind of going back a couple days when I was learning more and more about this event, I didn't assume that any of the players were gonna be there, just because I knew that they must be. I'm thinking, okay, they must be flying back to New Orleans after the game Monday night from Atlanta. But when I heard that Trey was going, I was like, okay, that checks out. I figured Trey would be there, but not only Trey, but a bunch of other players were as well.
Like I said, seeing Zion, DeJounte, and everybody else over there, what was pretty cool to see that.
All right, y'all, now it's time for Western Conference Wednesday. Mr. Eichenhofer will tell us whose stock is up and whose stock is down. So let's get started. Jim, what is our team to keep an eye on for this week?
Well, Mallory, the team to watch over the next 7 days is the Golden State Warriors, and I picked them for a range of reasons that are kind of interesting.
Okay.
I mean, one, they've lost 5 games in a row, so they were 12-3. I think at one point they were the number 1 seed in first place in the West. Now they're all the way down to 7th. I mean, you can see you can't lose even 2-3 games in a row.
They're in 7th?
Right. You lose a few games in a row and you're going to drop. You lose 5 games in a row and you go from 1st to 7th. So 5-game losing streak for them. But even more, maybe to the point as far as looking ahead, their upcoming week is really interesting. They have a Thursday home game against the Rockets. Then they play 2 home games in a row against the Timberwolves, Friday on ESPN and on Sunday against them as well. And this is beyond the next 7 days, but they're also in the NBA Cup quarterfinals next Wednesday. They play the Rockets again. So you're talking 2 games against the Rockets, 2 games against the Timberwolves over the next 8 days. They're on a 5-game losing streak. They need to get it together, or they're going to drop even further. But I mean, to me, they're just an example of how narrow the margin of error is in the West, that you can't have a bad week or you're going to, drop a ton. If you have a really good week, you might be able to move up a couple spots. Speaking of which, stock up for this week is the Dallas Mavericks. The Warriors have lost 5 games in a row. The Mavericks have won 5 games in a row. Over the last 7 days, they beat the Knicks, they won at Utah, at Portland, and they beat Memphis last night in a game that got the Mavericks into the NBA Cup quarterfinals. So we know not that long ago the Mavericks were, I think they were even out of the top 10. They were kind of on the fringe of playing. But because of the stretch that they've had, they're now 14-8 overall, and they've moved all the way up to third place in the West. For stock down, I could have easily picked Golden State for this, but I don't want to, repeat the same team twice on Western Conference Wednesday. So, I searched really hard, and it was really a difficult decision, but for stock down, I think I got to go with the Los Angeles Lakers, Gus.
I knew it.
Yeah.
So happy you did that.
And, I mean, they went 2-2 over the last 7 days, so not bad, but they had a couple really ugly losses, one-sided losses. One of them was to OKC. One of them was to Minnesota. But really, more to the point here, and we're talking broadly, big picture-wise, they're now 12-9 overall. There was a stretch there where not that long ago where they were like top 4 in the West. Now they're all the way down to 9th.
Oh, what a shame.
And even more relevant to New Orleans fans, let's think about this for a second, Gus. They're 12-9, like I said. They're in 9th place. They're only 1.5 games ahead of the Timberwolves, who are in 11th place. The Timberwolves are 10-10. That means that they're 1.5 games ahead of being out of the play-in. So, considering, if you're someone who wants to see misfortune among the Lakers, and you want to look at the fact that the Pelicans have the ability to take their pick, if they're not a play-in team, if the Lakers aren't a play-in team, that means they're in the lottery, which means that draft pick that the Pelicans have will be a lottery pick.
Yeah.
So
yesterday I'm at the gym, and look, they're the Cowboys, right? During the season,
you talk about them
during
no matter
basketball.
what.
I was going to say that, and I do find, fair or not fair, it feels like any single time there's a loss, there's always a graphic or is a split image of Darvin Ham and J.J. Redick, and it's the same record through so many games. I don't know who's keeping track of that, but people love to do that, I guess, that they're currently the same record through this many games last year and this year, whatever. But the more important aspect, and it is, because this does matter, LeBron's struggling as of late. And, there's screaming A, and there's the graphic. Is this something to be concerned about or not? The man is going to be 40.
Right. This month.
Right. Are we starting to see Father Time, which, as we know, is undefeated?
Sure.
We saw it happen with Drew Brees. We saw it happen with all the greats, Michael Jordan. I mean, we saw it at some point, even a man that takes care of his body impetuously. But at some point, are we starting to see that?
I mean, it could be. I mean, first of all, it's amazing that he's gotten to this point at 39.
It really, honestly,
I mean, you could have said that 4 or 5 years ago. Like, how is he doing this at 34 or 35 years old, and now he's 39 and he's still playing at the level? I think, to me, I don't want to sit here and make any predictions in terms of, how the season is going to go or whether he's declining. I think I'd rather just let that play itself out. But what I will say is, I think one thing that's interesting to think about in terms of his game is every player who plays, unless you're a center and you're playing in the paint, every player as they get into their mid to late 30s drifts further and further from the basket. They start taking more threes because it's harder physically to go to the basket, and you don't have the same quickness. You lose a step, you lose a half step. But what makes that important to know about LeBron or any player at that stage of their career is when you're so much more reliant on threes, your consistency changes because you're not getting those dunks, you're not getting those layups. So, I mean, I thought I saw the stat that he's missed 19 three-pointers in a row over the last 4 games, which I believe is the longest stretch of his career in terms of an offer from the three-point line. The difference is, when he was even 32, 33 is that, or even a few years ago, is that he didn't have to rely just on threes, but the portion of his shots from the field that come from the perimeter now is so much higher. So it's harder to be consistent from game to game, even if you're Steph Curry, if you're taking 12 to 15 3-pointers a game, you're going to have nights where you go 2 for 12 or whatever it is. So I think that's the thing to watch with him is just if his jumper's not falling, it used to be not the end of the world, but now it's tough. Right, exactly.
And to your point, Steph Curry still, I can see him kissing it off the glass and doing teardrops and things of that nature. I'll say this. It's the stat that I think a lot of people don't think of a lot. They've never been above the 6th spot since he's been there.
Right.
And one year they even went
the COVID season. Right. They were the 1 seed. Yeah. In the bubble.
Point is, that's a guy, as we've seen, unfortunately, if that game is tight, if that game is late in the 4th, the 2-man game between him and AD, and look, Dalton Connect is a really good basketball player. That adds something to it too. These guys, and I think he understands that it's December 4th as we record this. It's April when it matters. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to be like, oh, it's over.
Right, for sure.
Those guys can get in the 10th spot, win 2 games. Now you got to beat them 4 times, and now you got a guy that will do whatever it takes.
The other thing I think that's going to be interesting to monitor beyond his specific play on the court is how are the Lakers going to handle his usage in terms of, J.J. Redick mentioned, maybe we'll consider that he's not going to play in every game. But the flip side of that is, as I mentioned, with they're only 1.5 games ahead of 11th place, you don't have a lot of wiggle room. And like you said, it is only the first week of December, but still, it's like you can't really play around too much with that. You can't be like, okay, we know it's going to help us and him individually a ton if he takes the next, say, week or 2 off. But in the meantime, you got to win games because you can't slip further from where you are now. All
right, as we wrap up Western Conference Wednesday, the Thunder are atop. The Rockets 1.5 games back. Dallas 2.5 back with Memphis 3-4. In 5th spot, 3 games back, the Clippers. The Suns sitting there at 6-3.5. The Warriors, as Jim said, 3.5 as well in 7th. Denver's 8, Lakers 9. They're both 4 games back of first. The Spurs sitting at 10th, 5 games back. So, Jim, 1 through 10, 5-game differential.
Yeah, it's not surprising. I mean, that's it's interesting too to think that even the Rockets have been playing outstanding basketball, but you see even like the top of the West, it seems like all of those teams have lost some games lately too, so that. At one point, I think the first place team was 12-3, something like that. Now OKC is 16-5. So, even for the best team in the West, I don't think they're going to win 60 games. I think it's going to be hard to get over even maybe like the 55-game mark. So, but it was really interesting Tuesday night in the West. And I'm sure we're going to talk about this more on Friday when we do our radio roundtable. But just to see and by the way, too, I wanted to circle back to this from the previous show. I don't mean to pat myself on the back too much, but my predictions of Dallas and OKC making it to the quarterfinals, that ended up being the case. So
right.
It was a little dicey there at the end of the Grizzlies-Mavs game, but Dallas ended up winning and getting in.
And my final thing as we wrap up, there's only one team, Jim, in the Western Conference has double-digit home wins. Who do you think it is?
Well, I have the standings in front of me right now.
You would be cheating.
I shouldn't have cheated, but yeah, I see it's the Memphis Grizzlies.
Is that surprising to you that no team in the Western Conference has double? Now, again, we don't have a lot of games. We're in 21, 22 games played.
Golden State's only played 8 home games, for example, so they couldn't have double-figure wins. But Memphis has been a really good home team every season except last year when their entire roster was out because of injuries. Familiar story around here. But, for whatever reason, they're really dangerous in FedEx Forum. I feel like their aggressiveness and their relentlessness pay off a ton when they play at home.
I bring that up because 8 of the 13 games in December for the Pelicans are at home, and we've talked about this. We talked about it in this podcast. Herb Jones should be back very soon. You have everybody else back other than Zion, essentially, and Brandon Ingram, and he's been looking like he's been working his way back and should be really close as well. Point being, this month, you should have maybe everybody but Z. If not Z, I don't know. The point is, you're at home, you get to win some games. You mentioned a 5-game win streak can bump you in the standings. I know the Pels are down there yet, but if you want to make a run and win some games here and do an 8-2 and 10 or 7-3 and 10, this is the month to do it.
You mentioned the 8 home games out of 13 part of it, but if you think about it too, they've already banked 2 of the road games, so really they're going to be home a ton. You have a 2-game homestand here coming up, Phoenix, OKC. Then you have a 1-game quick at San Antonio. Then you're home for, by the way, those 2 added games. They play Sacramento now on December 12th. They play at Indiana on December 15th. And then you end the month with, there is a road game at Houston on December 19th, but then you have 5 straight home games. So, I mean, they're going to get a lot of opportunities to play in front of their own fans, and hopefully they can get back to winning games at home. But yeah, the opportunity is there. I mean, they're too far out of 10th right now to even go that route, but it's just time to start putting some wins together and getting a better feeling around here.
No doubt. That is Jim Eichenhofer, Pelicans.com. Again, our thanks to head coach Antwan Butler, head coach of Hale County High School over there in Greensboro, Alabama. Our thanks to Herb Jones. Our thanks to everybody else that has been a part of this podcast here as well. We will see you again on Friday. Are you going to say it, Jim? We're going to talk about a win? Are we going to talk about a win against the Suns?
Yes, let's do that.
There it is.
Let's do that.
We feel very positive about it. Thank you for tuning us in, as always, on the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast. Join us 3 times per week on Pelicans.com, the Pelicans mobile app, the iHeartRadio app, or where you get your podcasts. And be sure to give Jim and Gus a follow on X at Jim_Eichenhofer and GCat_17. We'll see you next time, right here on the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast.